Are you considering moving to Denver, Colorado? Well, if so, this video is worth watching. I'm gonna be sharing with you the real pros and the real cons of what makes Denver so great, and also for some people, maybe not the best spot for them in 2025. I'm really gonna be going deep on some things that you might not have thought about before, so I'm excited to share that with you on a brand new episode of Living in Denver. All right, so as I said, today's gonna be all about diving deeper into what really are the true, real pros and cons of living in Denver in 2025. As I said, I'm a 40+ year Colorado native, and I'm really excited to share some stuff with you guys today that you may not have thought about before. Denver's changed a lot over the course of my life here, whether it be the population size, some of the air quality, and just crime rates that are recently affecting the city, and also just what really has changed over the last decade or two when it comes to outdoor activities, amenities, and just really the whole landscape of how Denver looks today. So we're gonna jump right into all of that, but before we do, as I said, my name is Adam Lang. I'm a licensed realtor here in Denver, Colorado. I love making videos just like this one, but really I like connecting with viewers like yourselves. So all that info on the screen, feel free to reach out. Even if you're not seriously considering moving to Denver for a year or two, I'd still love the opportunity to connect with you. So just feel free to text me, shoot me an email, or just give me a call. Love to talk. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. As I said, today's gonna be all about the real pros and cons of Denver in 2025. All right, so the first pro is going to be the smaller influx of people moving to the city of Denver. This is something that over the last couple of decades, Denver has always been in the top 10 of the states in the United States of America for people moving to. This is for a lot of reasons, obviously. We have a great state here, a lot of fun things to do, great job opportunities. There's a ton of amazing things about living here in Colorado, especially here in Denver. But this past year, 2024, one of the sites that I like to really reference a lot is U-Haul. U-Haul has a moving index, and since they're helping people move across the country 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they've got a really good pulse on this. And last year, we actually went from being in the top 10 to being ranked at number 40. So now we're in the bottom 20% of states that people are moving to. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think just at a high level, more than anything else, it's just the cost of living and just the opportunities for people to purchase homes here in Colorado compared with the average or the median salary that they're making with the job opportunities here. There's a really big disparity or difference between the two when you compare with cities like Houston, Dallas, a lot of the big cities in Texas, as well as a lot of the Sun Belt states, and even down in Florida. So there's a lot of just different minor challenges with, the job market, the cost of living, and the cost of real estate here in Colorado. We definitely are one of the more expensive states when it comes to the median home price. Last year, in fact, we were just under 600,000, about 585,000. So this is definitely, significantly higher than a lot of the states, again, in the Sun Belt, as well as Texas and some of the other states, even just around Colorado. So one last thing before I move on, just another statistic to share with you. In 2020, Denver's population grew by 1.7%. This past year, it only grew by 0.4%. So over a full percentage point less. And that's just one example of, again, how there is a lot less people moving here right now. The next pro that I want to share with you, I want to go a little bit deeper into this one, is just the outdoor lifestyle that not only Colorado, but especially recently, Denver is providing you. Denver has always been a city that embraces a lot of outdoor activities, but I've just really noticed in the last, 6 months to a year, so very recently, just how much more Denver really is expanding when it comes to this. One example that I'll share with you is this awesome new trail system that just got finished at the end of 2024. It's called the Denver Orbital Trail System. And Denver just really made a priority to basically just connect all of these different trails around the city of Denver, where now you actually have a 28-section loop that you can make. It's called the Orbital Trail. It's almost 200 miles long. It's all paved and very well maintained, and just an example of how Denver is putting a lot of investment into improving some of these outdoor opportunities So for people that don't necessarily want to go up to the mountains and explore and enjoy all of those awesome benefits of living here in Colorado, but also actually here in the city of Denver. I'm also noticing this with the parks. All of our big city parks like Sloan Lake, Wash Park, they're all just really seeing a lot of, I think, improvements when it comes to just the quality of maintenance. I'm just never really seeing much trash around the parks. And I just feel like they're doing an exceptionally good job recently when it comes to managing everything. I don't know, part of that maybe had to do with COVID and how now we're past that phase where maybe now it's just a little bit more of a higher priority with the city of Denver. But I've just noticed that there's definitely a higher level of quality of just keeping everything looking pristine. And I think that really goes a long way because we do have so many people here in the city of Denver, and these parks are being used at a very high level of volume. So in addition to that Denver Orbital Trail that I just shared with you, another example that I'll share is I have a really good friend of mine. Her name's Rena, and she actually just recently shared with me this awesome dog park that even after living here my whole life, I never really knew about. And it was at Cherry Creek State Park. And this is another example, again, of just how in the city of Denver, they're really doing a great job with just adding extra amenities and just making everything even better than it was before. So at the Cherry Creek State Park, they have this off-leash dog park where not only can you just let your dog off leash to roam around and enjoy themselves, but there's bodies of water, there's little creeks and stuff that they can play in. And it's just a massive amount of land that they put this into, this off-leash dog park, where you really can let your dog feel like they're exploring. And it's just a totally different level of quality than maybe what you're used to back home, or maybe what you've seen in the past when it comes to dog parks, and especially these off-leash dog parks. I think of, my dog Charlie, and I always have kind of prevented him from even going into these dog parks because I always just worry about, just the quality of, if he's going to get sick, or if the park itself has been, maintained and they're picking up after themselves. And there's just a lot of just concerns that I've had. And it always just feels like it's crowded and there's just not that much space for them to enjoy. And this Cherry Creek State Park with this dog park is awesome. It's just totally different than what I've expected in the past with this type of dog park, and it's just awesome. So sorry if that's a long-winded explanation, but definitely check out the Cherry Creek Dog Park if you guys do end up coming out here and you have some furry friends that you want to take out. And then my third the third thing that I think is something that you might not know about is just the quality of Denver's infrastructure and how this is also seems to be really high on their list of priorities when it comes to improvements. Denver has the 16th Street Mall, and the 16th Street Mall is just in downtown Denver. And growing up as a kid, I used to go here a lot. It was a really fun place, lots to do. Everything was very hip, and all the businesses were occupied. There wasn't much vacancy. It just had a lot of vibrance to it. Well, fast forward to 2020, 2019, kind of right when COVID and all that stuff happened. There was a period of time where this totally took a major dive. A lot of stuff in the news about how I think at one point it was like 60% vacancy in this area. And it just really took a downward spiral where it went from a beautiful, awesome place to spend time to not really feeling even safe going there. Well, I definitely want to share with you guys that it is improving. It's getting better. They're definitely still facing some vacancy issues. And I think that's just part of the landscape that we have today, with a lot of businesses being online and not necessarily needing that brick and mortar space. But despite that, I do think, though, that this is going to be an area, the 16th Street Mall, that's really getting improved. They just did a massive construction redevelopment program there where they improved the bus. It's a pedestrian mall, and they redid all of the bus areas where it's much safer to just walk around. Just a lot more greenery and plants to kind of offset the concrete jungle that exists in this downtown area. Into this area where there's skyscrapers all around. This is downtown Denver. And just, a lot nicer than where it was a few years ago. So an area that I really am just excited to share that is on the up and up, and I think it's only going to get better. So that would be one example of just this improvement of infrastructure that, as a Denver native, I'm just excited to finally see some of this happening again, because there were a few years where I was just getting a little pessimistic when it came to Denver and just the direction we were heading. And in addition to the 16th Street Mall, also one other example of this would be the Aurora area, which is basically just a little bit west of downtown Denver and just a little bit south, but really still in that central hub of Denver. And they're doing a lot of mixed use projects, especially with low income housing and just trying to create more density for housing opportunities for people that might be on a fixed income or that lower income bracket. So just another thing that I think is exciting to share, that how Denver really is prioritizing inclusion and just making the city available to everybody that they possibly can. So another just little side story to share of why I think this infrastructure in Denver is really improving and something that I think puts, at least in my opinion, it at the top of the list when it comes to cities in America, and my third pro of why I think Denver's so great this year. All right, so those are the 3 pros. So got through the upbeat portion of this video. Now I want to share with you guys a few cons or a few, things that are maybe not so great in my opinion. At the end of the day, everybody has to make their own decision, and I think there still are definitely many more pros than there are cons. So in my opinion, this is still a great place to move to, and I don't plan on going anywhere. I plan on sticking around Denver for the long term. But the first con that I want to share with you, something that you guys may or may not really be aware of in Denver, is just the congestion. Not having a bad cold and that kind of congestion, but traffic and just the amount of people that really congest certain areas around Denver. So a quick story, again, since I grew up here my whole life, back in the day, there's a little bit of rush hour traffic, maybe from 7:30 in the morning until 8:30, and then again about 4:30 to 5:30 in the evenings. That was back when everybody kind of had the similar work schedule. It was more of just that traditional lifestyle that existed back in the 1990s and 2000s. Fast forward to today, not only do we have a lot more people living in Denver, but also there's a lot more of a variety when it comes to work schedules and just where people are working. Because of that, Denver's traffic and just this congestion is no joke. I mean, it is to the point where it's really frustrating. And mainly because at any given time throughout the day, you could get stuck in it. It's not nearly as predictable as it used to be, which is, I think, a negative. It's something that I think it's definitely a lot different from what it used to be. And because of that, it's a little bit of a negative. As an example, on average, last year in 2024, the average commuter spent 72 hours stuck in traffic. I know this might be a number that's kind of hard to comprehend or relate to, but that is much higher than the national average. I think with Denver, this is really especially hit areas like Parker, also Castle Rock. Those are both on the south side of Denver, as well as places like Thornton and Northland, which are on the kind of opposite on the northern side of town. Those are some areas that I've personally just experienced some of this additional headache when it comes to commuting and getting caught off guard with bad traffic. And definitely some areas that if you come out here, I'd recommend we explore together, and I can kind of share some little pockets of real estate, some little areas that you might consider living in where you can avoid a lot of this and not have to get on the major roads like I-25 and potentially get stuck in this on a frequent, hopefully not a daily basis, but potentially on a very regular weekly basis. We do have a lot of great public transportation between the RTD, which is our bus system, and also our light rail. However, there have been a lot of budget cuts recently, and that has affected the number of lines that are running as far as the frequency. So I have also heard some, a little bit of pushback recently in the last 6 months, just with people frustrated with some of the public transportation options. So that's another negative that I'll kind of combine into this first point, just being the overall congestion in Denver. All right, so the second con, another thing that you might not really be aware of at all, I think this is actually the biggest point that I want to make in the entire video today, is going to be the negative or the con of the air quality in Denver. So, maybe you've been to Denver a few times, maybe you're very familiar with Denver, but, when I think of Colorado and I think of Denver, I think of the Rocky Mountains, I think of healthy, active lifestyle, I think of beauty, great scenery, and I think of just quality air, just being able to breathe in that fresh mountain air and just enjoy being in Denver because of that. Well, believe it or not, in the last year, Denver actually ranked in the top 10 worst cities in America when it came to air quality. However, one thing that's really interesting is you might be thinking the reason for the air quality being so bad is just because of this volume of people that are here, just being a very dense city at this point, lots of traffic, lots of pollution. Believe it or not, it's actually not that as much as it is the wildfires. Every state nowadays, I feel like, is fighting these different environmental challenges. We've had a lot of big wildfire scares in all sorts of states across the country, especially recently in California. But Colorado has definitely seen their fair share as well. What's unique and interesting, though, about wildfires, a lot of times it's not even the state that's affecting the wildfire quality, the air quality. It's actually other places around the country that are kind of pushing the bad air quality on us. Last year in the fall, we had a really big fire up in Canada. It actually was lasting through the entire summer into the fall. I think some of these fires actually still haven't gone out after almost a year, but a lot of that fire way up north is actually what has been affecting the air quality down here in Denver. So sometimes it's not even the wildfires locally here in Colorado. A lot of times it can also just be further away places that are still having the jet streams and just the different air systems bringing that smoke and all that congestion here into Denver. As you can imagine, with these wildfires and just being prepared for any that might come up, there also are some water restrictions. So depending on what part of Denver you live in, there might be some restrictions when it comes to watering your lawn, how many days a week you're allowed to do it. Some of this is a little bit gray area as far as how they're really monitoring or going to be holding you accountable for this. Other than the one that I've experienced personally, they're going to hit your pocketbook. So with water as an example, they're able to have these different tiers of usage where if you use more than a certain percentage of water or a certain amount of water, they're going to basically bump you up to this higher level tier where the price you're paying per gallon is significantly higher. There was a day this past summer where I had a big, really brown dead spot in my backyard, and I was just hitting it with as much water as I could. I was watering it, probably over-watering it. I was watering it every day for about 2 weeks. Well, I get my water bill, a month later, and my water bill went from like $30 or $40 a month to almost $200. And it wasn't because I used 5 times the amount of water. I only used probably about twice as much water, but it went into this next tier of higher price per gallon, and it was significant. I was blown away. I thought there was a typo when I first looked at my bill. So there are ways that they're able to limit water usage by just affecting your pocketbook. So just something to keep in mind if you are, have a green thumb and you just love, lawn care and really taking care of your grassy, yard at your house. That's still possible. Tons of beautiful lawns all around me where I currently live, but just be aware that it might cost you a bit more if you really want to, have it be pristine. And the last thing I'll share on this topic before moving on to my third con, when it comes again to just air quality and just this environmental concerns, we have not just forest fires in the summertime here. One thing that was really crazy was actually a couple years ago, we had a huge fire just outside of Boulder. And what was crazy about this one is it actually happened on between Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. It was, in the middle of winter, which you would typically think in a state like Colorado where we're getting snow would not even be a thought that you would have a forest fire or even a fire here in a more urban area like outside of Boulder. But at this day and age, we're getting fires any month out of the year. So just another thing to think about when it comes to, if you're worried about that, or maybe you're also just concerned about insurance premiums and just the cost of living outside of just being able to afford to buy a home, there are some other, additional expenses. One of the big ones being your home's insurance, which has significantly gone up over the past year. And in fact, it's gotten to the point where a few of the big insurance companies aren't even insuring anymore in Colorado, and they're actually pulling out of the state completely. So just a reason to think a little bit more about, what other factors might go into your decision of moving out here, and maybe just not only just the quality of the air and that environmental piece, but also just the cost that comes along with it. All right, and then that third and final con, another reason why for some people, Denver just really isn't the right spot for them. This comes down to crime and really just the overall public safety concerns. If you're at all connected with the news, you've probably seen over the past few months, there's been a lot in the local and national media when it comes to some of these Venezuelan gangs coming into Denver. There's a really big news story a few weeks ago about how they even took over an entire apartment community in Denver. Actually, it was just outside of Denver in Aurora, which is, again, in the city of Denver. But what was really crazy about this one is they, took over the entire apartment community. It was something that was kind of a back and forth, both again in the national, but also the local news about whose responsibility was it to get these people out of there, and was it really a gang, or was it just, migrants? Just kind of getting a little bit more, details on what was even happening. Well, they got to the point where they actually condemned the entire apartment community. I think over 40 families were displaced and had to leave. So there's stuff like this that is actually happening, and it's definitely a concern. It's definitely a public safety concern. There are also other statistics that we can look at. There's some great websites out there. Niche.com is one really good one. Also crimedata.com. But what's, I think, also something worth considering is when it comes to murders. Obviously, that's a horrible thing to talk about, but the murders have actually stayed very similar over the past few years as far as the percentage. The data that I looked at recently, it was 69 in 2023, and it went down to 60 in 2024. So some of the violent crimes have not significantly gone up. However, the bigger concerns have been just with the non-violent crimes, and also a lot of the more petty thefts, cars, breaking into homes. Some of that type of crime has seen a rise. And overall, we are at a higher level than the national average. I think the biggest thing, just to kind of close out on this topic, is there are so many different parts of Denver. And what it really takes is just understanding the layout of the city. And again, finding out what's most important to you. And if crime, or more importantly, I should say, public safety is really high on your list, there are parts of Denver that definitely have a much lower risk factor in areas that you just really won't, I don't think, even think about this once you're there. And I would recommend personally some of these areas to at least explore and consider as master plan communities. Highlands Ranch is the biggest in all of Denver, as well as some smaller ones like Grant Ranch, which is actually where I currently live. I haven't noticed any public safety concerns where I live, and I just think that with a master plan community, I think just because of the way it's established and built out, there's just not nearly as much transient traffic with people coming and going. And it's really just an area that people that live come and go from. But outside of that, you won't see nearly as much of that, again, transient community. So I just think that master plan communities are a great option to consider if public safety is high on your list. All right, well, there you have it. Hope you guys got a little bit of value out of those pros and those cons. I wanted just to kind of hit them at a high level and not go too far in depth with them. But I do want to share with you, if you have more specific questions on any of this stuff, I would love just to connect with you guys. It's all that info down below. Feel free to reach out. And just I want to make the point one last time, Denver is an amazing city. There's a reason why so many people have moved here in the past. And even though we have gone down to number 40 on that U-Haul moving index, there still are a lot of people moving here and a lot of people that love the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. So there's a lot to consider here when it comes to Denver and whether or not it's the right city for you. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that moved here in the past. There's going to continue to be a lot of people that move here in the future. And that's because this is an awesome place to live. I love it. And all my friends and family love it. And hopefully, if you haven't come out here yet, you guys will at least get the opportunity to give it a shot, learn a little bit more about if this might be the spot for you, and go from there. I love connecting with you guys. So please, once again, that phone number, that email, reach out. If you're considering coming out here, also, don't forget to download. I have a brand new Locals Guide to Denver. It's completely free. There's a link down below, or you can scan the QR code, and it shares 20 of my favorite neighborhoods all around Denver. My favorite restaurants, bars, parks, trails, schools, everything you can think of. It's all in this guide, and it's completely free. Just another resource that I put together to share with you guys as you make that consideration of whether or not Denver might be your next place to call home. As always, guys, love making videos like this one, but I'm really just excited to connect. So look forward to hopefully hearing from you soon. And until next week, I'll see you then on a brand new episode of Living in Denver. I'll see you then. Bye.